This is Chris Copeland, director at Laika Animation. His career is crazy, like very positive, crazy. He is originally from Chicago and then decided to come to LA and got his first job as storyboard artist. Very excited at his job. He then soon got fired.
I got fired. I got fired 5 months after.
Okay, well, not so soon. Welcome to our first live episode of La Artisteada. Honestly, I am extremely excited for many reasons. One, it's our first live episode. Yay! And then two, because we have this great guest, Chris Copeland. So thank you so much for being here. I will make the introduction about you in a second, but I also want to highlight Blue Omari. She is selling her beautiful artwork. So thank you so much for also sharing space with us. And thank you everyone for being here. You all got on time, so we really appreciate this. But yes, okay, so let's get started. So this is Chris Copeland, director at Laika Animation. And we are so excited because his career is crazy, like very positive, crazy. He is originally from Chicago and started building his career at going to conferences and going to every resource that he had at his in his surroundings. Disposal. Thank you. And then he decided to make the leap of faith and came to LA with his wife and then got his first job.
And our 1-year-old, who was one at the time.
The whole family.
The whole squad, yes.
And then decided to come to LA and got his first job as storyboard artist. Very excited at his job. He then soon got fired.
I got fired. I got fired 5 months after.
Okay, well, not so soon. Which we will definitely be talking about in the episode. But then he had an incredible comeback and now has worked on Emmy-nominated, GLAAD-nominated, and NAACP-nominated series. And now, I can't remember the name of the series. Kipo and the Wonderbeasts.
And the Age of Wonderbeasts.
And the Age of Wonderbeasts.
They added that last part just to piss people like us off. I remember Kipo, and then the Age of, is it the Wonder? It's crazy. So if you
I remember Wonderbeasts.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I do it. Kipo. That's what I worked on Kipo, and everyone goes, yay! And I say the Age of Wonderbeasts, and I don't know who you are. So it's fine.
Well, yeah, you worked on amazing things and have many credits on DC and Marvel titles. So this is just the intro for this exciting conversation.
Props to you. I remember when I got into animation, I remember one of my directors, and I remember saying, yo, in 2005, what were you working on? And he looked at me and was like, I don't know, man. Like, where's your storyboard? And I was like, this is why I got fired. But I remember him saying that to me, and I remember being so disgusted with him. Like, how do you forget the stuff? We're making cartoons, bro. How do you forget? Somebody comes and asks me, they're like, yo, I saw you got a credit on blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. I did that. I don't remember so many of the shows that I worked on. It's really insane because you're just going and you don't ever remember. So props to you for remembering.
Oh, thank you.
Some of that, because I'm like, woo.
Thank you. No, but you worked on amazing things, and I'm wondering right now you work at Laika Animation, which if people don't know what Laika Animation has done, they've done Coraline, which is like their biggest show. Can you talk to us about what you do at your current role?
Yeah. So my Laika. No one knows what Laika is, and then you say Coraline, and everyone goes, oh my God, like I dressed up as her. And you're like, yeah, that place. My brother and I, Justin, shout out to Justin Copeland, my brother, we are creative partners, and we have been for, I want to say the last 7 years. I've been in animation for 15 years. We've been creative partners for the last 7 years. And so he and I, what I always tell people is that in animation, a lot of people, as you move up through the ranks in your position, a lot of people stop drawing because you have teams, you have designers, you have story artists, you have background designers, modelers, and all this stuff. my brother and I, we still draw a lot. And so most of our day is yelling at people to remove meetings from our calendar so we can spend time drawing. Like that is the core of my existence in animation, is to create, is to draw. And so right now what we are doing is when you start at a studio like Laika, there's a book that they optioned, that they bought, and I don't know if it's been announced yet. So in order to prevent myself from being canceled by my own studio, I won't reveal the name, but it's out there somewhere. But they came to us about this book probably 3 years ago. We were at DreamWorks developing our feature, and we were writing and directing a short that we were doing there as well. And so at that time, we were like, nah, we're good. But we really loved the excitement that they had for working with us. And so toward the end of last year, we finished up our short, which will be premiering at, I think, Annecy this year.
Nice.
Yeah, but we finished that up, and it was sort of like, okay, well, what's the next thing that we want to do? This other movie that we were developing there, they shelved it, and it was sort of like, the reasons for shelving is that they wanted us to do Kung Fu Panda 5. They were just getting into the place where they were going to start doing that, and we had some interest in it. And then it was just like, man, creatively, do you want to do a 5th movie in a franchise? You're having to play what's called Rosemary's Baby. You're going like, what elements do you get rid of from the storied franchise and bring in something new for, and which ones do you keep? So working on a 5th movie in a franchise, it's just tough. It's a really hard thing to do. Laika came knocking at the door of my agent and manager and was like, yo, we still want the brothers to do this movie if they're interested. And my brother and I were like, I ain't interested in doing no stop motion movie, man. Like, I just don't want to do a stop motion movie. And the development executive there, Ian Shepard, phenomenal dude, shout out to Ian. He was just like, first of all, you don't have to do a stop motion movie. And they're up in Portland. And he's like, you don't have to move to Portland. I'm like, oh my God, okay, well look, let's talk. And that energy shifted really quick for us. They were like, Ian goes, listen, man, we need to just have you come up to the studio and experience it. Like, we'll pay for everything. Come up here and see it. And my brother and I were like, I guess we'll do that. My God. It's like when you used to go to a homie's house and they had a room that was beautiful, but you couldn't go in there and touch anything. That's Laika. That entire studio is the room you're not supposed to be in with all the amazing trinkets. We got up there and just seeing the sets, like they're building these things, and they're warehouses filled with shooting sets, and so dolly arms and just models, and you're meeting these amazing people. My brother and I walked out of there, and we were just like, yo, I think we're about to make a stop motion movie. And so we've literally been creating and building this story from the ground up, and hiring artists in to come and dream with us and all of this. So
oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
That's all what's happening now with it.
It's honestly so exciting, and I think that you talking about stop motion made me think immediately about Bad Bunny and about his current. It's like stop motion is something like maybe people are like, oh, it's something from the past, but it's like honestly making its comeback.
Yes, 100%.
And within like the Latino community, like all the marketing that Bad Bunny is doing with like the frog. I don't know if y'all remember that little frog. Which is honestly, I'm like very proud because we interviewed the stop motion artist that created that frog too. So and also I was thinking maybe some people in the audience may not know what development is. So I'm like, let's maybe provide some context. What I also worked at development, so every time I would explain to people, it's like, you know, like Harry Potter was a book. People in development buy that book, buy the rights of that book, and then create the story. So you are part of the creating that story, right?
100%. Yeah. As a director in animation, like my brother and I were responsible for the directing. We're like taking artists and sending them into a direction to cast the vision and to see the vision. And so development in animation, as a director, you're the first hands on that property, because listen, they buy a book and you're not beholden to what that book says. When a studio buys a book, they're buying that idea. And so if it's a book about like breakdancing and it's a kid who goes breakdancing and yada, 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 what you're buying is not that kid's name, and you're not buying just his outfit that he's wearing or whatever. You're buying the idea behind the premise of that book. And so at any point you can go like, yeah, we want to use this and do this thing in the movie, but the other stuff we don't want to do. And so as directors in development, what my brother and I are doing is we're sitting, and a lot of times we're just like, he and I talk to each other constantly, and we'll just go like, yo, remember we were watching blah, 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 like that one scene from that, yeah. We feel like that energy should be here. So let's storyboard something now, or let's design one of the characters and sort of go like, this feels about right. Let's put down little versions of what we call the law, right? Like the law is, what are the things that are going to carry throughout this movie, no matter what? Whatever the writer is writing, whatever artist we bring on, here's an early element that we definitely want to have through this movie all the way through, because it just feels right spiritually and mentally and emotionally. It feels right. Let's find some of those little things. That's really what development is. You're literally casting the vision for what this movie is going to be, and you're taking drafts of the script, and you're talking with the writer and going like, yeah, we feel like actually this moment, let's get rid of that, let's replace it with this other idea. And you're building it to a place. For us, Travis Knight, who is the owner of Laika, CEO, Big Boss. I don't know what his exact title is for it.
Yeah, the boss of Laika.
The boss of Laika, right? But right now he's in the UK filming a live action He-Man movie. So he's doing that. We're putting together stuff and then pitching to our executives, who are then taking some of that to Travis and getting it set for a bigger pitch, which after that bigger pitch, he goes, yeah, let's move forward with this movie. Let's start animating it and building all the other assets. So spending all that time doing
what I love about all of this that you're talking about is that you have both the creative and kind of also like the executive business side of the knowledge that you need for this business, right? And so let's go a little bit back to your passion, where your passion from animation started. You've told, like, I've heard the other podcast. I was like studying all of your stories. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting to hear how your passion for animation started, and then also how you started building your network in Chicago to eventually come to LA.
For sure. I mean, it started with art. It started with, I mean, every person in here, your parents are cooking dinner or whatever, and they give you markers and paper, and they go like, go over there. And you end up drawing on the wall. Graffiti isn't all of us, guys. It's okay. But yeah, it started there for my brothers and I. Like, you know, single mom with 4 kids, south side of Chicago. She was just trying to keep us off of the streets. And so for us, it was anytime we would draw, because it was myself and my 2 brothers, and my sister didn't draw much. She was busy trying to piss us off or drive my mom crazy. But for a while, it was just all of us sitting at the table and just drawing. And it was this sort of, we're all at the same table, we're all exposed to the same resources, but we're all paying attention to different elements of those resources. And what I mean by that is, like, for my brother Justin, he literally thought he was Steven Spielberg. Like my
we
boy.
We love that vision.
Listen, it's fine until you're playing tag and you're in a hiding space and he's got a camera and you're like, dude, like pretend like you're sad. I'm like, no, pretend like I'm angry because you're exposing my hiding spot. But like, he literally just dreamed in movies. For me, I was always.
And this is a brother that you currently work with.
This is my creative partner. And for me, the idea of being a director of movies was always cumbersome as a thought. For me, I was so enamored by visual, like the way that something looked, how cool. I remember we were on the L train going from the south side of Chicago to the north side, and there was a cemetery wall just plastered with graffiti. I literally had a spiritual moment in that, like literally seeing, because for other people it was tagging, but for me I was like, yo, those are stories, bro. Like rest in peace, like Dilla or whatever, like rest in peace Vision. I'm like, oh, homeboy was a person and they're paying homage to him, right? Like that, he's still alive through this art. And then the shapes of graffiti, the arrows and all that stuff. So I was just like, I'm not doing anything but drawing from now on. Like that's just what I'm gonna do. And so that really started. And then when I started actually going out and bombing and everything, and my mom was like, look, let me put this one straight to you. I'm not picking you up from a police station. You get arrested, you're sleeping there. So choose wisely. And I'm like, that means nothing until I got arrested. I'm sitting there with a bunch of dudes. I'm like, he's going to kill me. Like, I feel it. I think I can do this on paper. You know what I mean? Like, that was sort of that jump into, okay, I think there was something that came alive in me when I would think of something, because I still take medication for my ADHD. Like I was always seeing the different things, and my fidget, my coping mechanism was sketching. So I would just draw whatever I would see, and it would allow for me to continue to pay attention to boring teacher up there saying, teaching me trigonometry. And I just leaned into that and kept that going. And so by the time it came to that place where I'm 19 or 20 and going like, well, I guess I gotta get a job. I guess I gotta like work. What am I gonna do? Like, what is it that I wanna do? And I didn't, in Chicago at that time, it was like there was marketing agencies where you can get into like doing graphic design or whatever for Quaker Oats or whatever. And then it was like comic books. Comic books was still it was a vague notion, just because you're like, I know that there's comic conventions and we can go to those things, but how do I break in? How do I become a name and all of this stuff? And it was like, well, going to there, like spending time drawing, building a portfolio, and going and pitching it. And so for a long time, my brother Justin and I, that's all we would do is go to these conventions, take notes from whatever the editor had to say about our art, and then follow them to the New York convention. And most of the time they were surprised. They're like, yo, we thought we'd meet you again next year in Chicago. But it was like, nah, I saved up money. Here I am in New York showing you some new art. And we were trying to break into comics for a long time. And it just became a thing.
What is a long time?
I started trying to break in, I want to say it was 97. It was 96. Because I remember we were living with my mom out in a suburb right outside of Chicago. So 96, I started trying to break in. By 2003, the game was shifting so much, and we were getting momentum, but it was shifting so much that I was realizing that the lack of getting in was not because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't interested anymore. Like it was evolving in a way where I was like, I'm not interested in a house style, which is like, this is how the lead artist at our studio draws. Can you draw in that style? And I'm like, no, because he's whack. And I'm like, he's not good. Like, what? I'm looking at French comic books are now coming over stateside. Anime is now coming over stateside. I'm looking at some dude who is like riffing from old school Disney. I'm like, nah, fam. Like, I just can't incline. I got graffiti in my DNA. I got French animators. You know what I mean? Like all of these different things. And so my interest was gone. And so by the time we were good enough to where we could have really put in the effort and energy, I was on this site called DeviantArt. And I don't know if people remember DeviantArt. It's still around. But this is like around 2004, 2005. You got directors in animation. Shout out to Sam Liu and Lauren Montgomery and Phil Barraza, who is award-winning designer on Young Justice Season 1. You got these guys following you on this site and going like, yo, we love your art. And every time I would go to a convention, everyone would look at my stuff and go like, it's dope. It's like your stuff is like a cartoon. It's like animated. And I just got to this place where I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get into comic books because their minds are really small for my style. But at that time, I had these executives going like, yo, you really should try to get into animation.
These executives that you had met in Chicago?
No, these are guys that just were following me online.
Oh, okay, on social media?
Yeah, you know, like I said, Sam Liu, who is one of the most storied directors in animation history. Lauren Montgomery, you know, who is just one of my idols and inspirations. Joaquin Dos Santos, you know. These guys started following me and going like, yo, your stuff is really dope. And if you ever want to get into animation, you need to move to LA. And you know, I'm the younger brother, so I was like, yo, say less. Like, what, do I walk there? You know what I mean? Like, I was in that space because I found something that had once again piqued my interest. And so there you go. There's the long journey. It was drawing like crazy, surrounding myself with the art that inspired me, and continuing to dream. I didn't pay attention to the algorithm of what society or even the industry was saying was dope. I knew the stuff that I really loved, and I just hooked into that constantly. And I just kept drawing like crazy before I said, you know what? 08 came around, visited LA, Phil Barassa.
So then that's 10 years later, so like 10, 11 years later. Because I asked the question of how much time it was, because I think that sometimes we can get caught up, I guess, like as creatives, or like if you're in the executive route, like, oh my gosh, like it's been 3 years, it's been 4 or 5 years, and you don't see that thing that excites you anymore. It's like, why am I even here? Why am I even doing this?
On every level. To get in, it's that. Even when you're in it on a production, it's that. The time, and you're just like, you're cognizant of the ticks and the time. People say time flies when you're having fun. I go, no, time flies when you have deadlines. Like, that's when time flies. And you're just like, what is going on? I remember, if you listen to the director's commentary of The Incredibles, Brad Bird is talking about it. He said, like, when he started on The Incredibles, you get in there and there's this well, and you're taking there's just a stack of coins, and they're going like, oh, just throw the coins in the well. And you're like, okay. And you throw it, and you're listening, and you're like, and then they're like, no, just take another coin and just throw it in there. We got to throw the coins in the well, man. And after a while, you're just going, oh my God, this is another coin. Like, why are there so many coins? All right. And then you throw one in, and you throw one, and then you hear bling, and you go, wait, what? And you look in, and you're like, oh my God, it's stacking. But the time that takes, when you're thinking about just the time that you're not hearing that drop, you become a psycho. But when you get into the rhythm of, I'm just gonna grab 3 of these coins or 4 of these things now, and then before you know it, you start hearing the return of that thing. That's what it feels like on every level. You just have to be more obsessed with grabbing the coins and getting them in the well than when they're gonna start to fill up. And me, I was obsessed with my craft. I was just constantly like, the rhythm is active. 15-year-old kids are doing stuff artistically right now that I'm just like, you are a master at the craft. You just don't have a voice yet. You're not saying or doing it, but the craftsmanship is insane. And I wanted to continue to dream in that way. And that helped the time feel a little less psychotic, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, and I would love to talk about when you moved then to LA. Yeah. And like, this is honestly a fascinating part of your journey. Yeah. You moved to LA, you moved to become a storyboard artist. Yeah. And I think also something important maybe to also note is that I think that here, if you're in LA, the trajectory for a creative is usually that you become an assistant and then pursue these things. Yep. And so that wasn't your trajectory, but you— In some ways,
okay. Yeah. I mean, we moved out here. I literally, we got my 1-year-old, it's myself and my wife, and I just knew the way that played out was Joaquim Dos Santos, he had direct messaged me on this site, DeviantArt, because I had come to visit the studio, so I got to meet him, and which was just like, you can't imagine pulling onto the ranch, it was called then, the Warner Brothers Ranch, which is now, deconstructed. But when you pull into there, the first thing you see is the fountain from the Friends show that they filmed the Friends opening on, which I didn't even watch that show, but just like, I knew what that fountain was. And there was something like, oh my God about it. But pulling into that, again, a high school dropout from the south side of Chicago, and I'm pulling into the Warner Brothers Ranch, and I'm just like—
Okay, now this is important. You didn't go to college?
No.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah,
that's episode 2. That's episode 2. Because, listen, I hate— it was at the core of it, it was racism at the core of it. So again, it's a heavier thing. But pulling into that ranch, going and visiting the studio, seeing the art on the walls, meeting Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm is the creator of Batman the Animated Series. That's the show that was like the game changer. And you meet him, and he's a crankety old dude. Because he's walking around like, I'm building shows, brother. Like, I got time to talk to you, but I'm like, oh my God, But I met Joaquim, and I expressed my desire. I'm like, I want to work in animation. And he's just like, dude, what? I mean, he's like, I'm directing. I don't know how to hire you or anything, but keep creating. We see, right? By the time I had gotten back to Chicago after that trip, I was gassed up. Like I'd found it, and I said, I have to do animation. I have to get in, and I wanted to be a character designer. And so, what ended up happening was, my wife and I, we were just like, praying and thinking and sacrificing animals, like whatever we could do to get like we got to get out there. You know what I mean? She was born out in Orange County. They moved back to Illinois when she was like 8. And our goal was always to get back to California for her. But for me, it was like, no, that place literally brought me to life when I was there. And so it was this thing of like, all right, man, we got to move out there. We saved up a little money, and I didn't have a job, but I knew I had the confidence. I said, if I could get into the room, I know I can land me a gig. Like, I know I'm dope. I look at my art from then now, and I'm like, Jesus, they really like me as a person. You got a good personality. But I said, if I can just get in the room, I felt confident enough that I could land a gig. And so we packed up our stuff. We moved out here. Joaquin direct messages me and goes, man, I was thinking about when we met, you're a cool cat, your art is good. He's like, I just think you need to move out to LA. I said, brother, we moved out here yesterday. Here's my number. Hit me up if you want to chat. He calls me immediately and he goes, wait, you moved out here? I said, yeah. He's like, you got a gig? I was like, no, I got an application to Best Buy, McDonald's, and Lowe's. I was like, I'm just going to work and, you know, then in the evening, I'll just draw and get my portfolio together. And he goes, my producer's gonna call you. This is the day after we moved out here. I had a cigar. I'm not a smoker, but I had a cigar that my father-in-law had given me. I was sitting on the trunk of our car and I was smoking. I'm looking at the palm trees and everything. And I'm just like, this is a movie. Like, this is insane. This is a movie.
You're like, where's my brother recording this?
Yo, where's the camera at now? But like, I was just in this place of like, oh my God, like I've arrived, right? And so Warner Brothers calls me.
Little did you know what happened.
Yeah, you arrived for me. They put return to sender on that mug. So like, she calls me, and well, before she calls me, my wife and I were in like, oh my God, it's about to happen. Here's a funny thing. She doesn't have a job at that point. I got applications, but I'm about to get this job offer from Warner Brothers. I don't know how they pay people in animation at this point. Like, is it a check? Do I clock in? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But my wife and I go, okay, how much money did you and I make together back when we were in Chicago? Because I need to at least make that. And she's just like, what? They gonna pay you that much money? I don't know, babe. Like, whatever. Like, let's figure it out. We do the math. We were like, between the both of us, again, this is like the late 90s, guys, so the money was different. But it was something like $800 every 2 weeks, $900 every 2 weeks. And so I go, okay, because I'm still thinking they pay you every 2 weeks. That's what the job does. So producer calls me, hey, Chris, Joaquin and the team is excited to have you. Tears, exciting, P. Some dance, I don't know. So what we want to bring you in as a storyboard revisionist, assistant position, essentially. You're cleaning up all the storyboards that were unfinished by the storyboard artist.
Oh, okay.
The director goes, nah, change this shirt to a blue. You're doing all of that stuff. Losing my mind. So blah, 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 blah. You'll start next week. What's your salary requirement? And I look at my wife. We had said 900. I was like, 950. And she got quiet. I was like, 925. I'll do 900 though. You know what I mean? I know I'm new. And she goes, well, it's illegal for us to pay you less than $1,200 a week. So how about we start there? And I was like, I don't know. It was, and my wife is cracking up, and I'm just out there, and it was just a dream come true on every level. And then starting, and I'm walking into the studio, I was just like this, oh my God. I'm sitting down at my desk, and I'm just like, failing miserably. Failing, because I'm just, oh yeah, I'll draw this little thing, and not doing enough in a day, not all of these things, because I'm just wide-eyed and like, this is not the Hollywood story. The Hollywood story is I work a job busting tables for a year and a half, 3 years, and some guy comes in and goes, hey, you got talent, kid, and gives me a shot. But I come out here, and I'm like, the next day I got a job at Warner Brothers. Like, the flex was real. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what you peasants in Chicago are doing these days, but here I am at the Friends Fountain. You know, like my director is like, hey, go do your job. And I'm like, oh, yeah. All right, y'all, I got to go. Like, so it was just this enamored state of things. And the reality of, oh, no, this is actually a job. It hadn't hit me until December 22nd of 2009 when my producer was going, hey, so we're going to let you go. And I was like, to the washroom? Yeah, that's fine. Like, no, yeah, you're not cutting it. And so it was just this, oh boy, what do we do from here type of thing. So, long story, I covered a lot, but I introduced you to a lot of things. Now we got 10 minutes and 12 questions.
We'll do rapid questions in a second, but I would love to talk because I think it's very important. I think that someone's like, at least my biggest fear while I was at either of the jobs and like assistant jobs that I was is that I would get fired, you know? Because it's like, how do you come up from that? Like, how do you get out from that? How do you get the other job? Because I think that it hurts you in your professional record, but also psychologically, you know, you're confident and trying to do your job, and then this comes at you. Like, can you talk a little bit about what was that for you in that moment, and also how you feel like you regain the confidence, also use your connections to start finding different opportunities?
100%.
Because I think that that also can be a little bit intimidating once you get fired from a job to start saying like, hey, can you hire me?
Oh my God. Yeah, in an atmosphere where you're like, oh, clearly, I mean, they pay weekly a really good amount, and that's just one, I'm drawing for a living. So it's just a new atmosphere. You get fired back in Chicago from Wendy's or whatever, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll go get a job at McDonald's or figure out what it, blah, blah, blah. I'm in a new land. I'm in California. I did not see many Black people at this studio. So there's that one, right? Like, I represent the vast majority of any diversity here in that regard. So already feeling like, oh my God, I don't have a lot of room to screw up. That pressure, to think that being cognizant of that pressure is a benefit for you, it's not. Because all while you're going, God, I can't screw up, what you're not locked into is, what do I bring and what do I do? Who am I as an artist, right? And so you're deviating from these core questions that really begin to refine who you are as an artist. And I spent those first 5 months in that area of just going like, oh God, I can't mess this up. I cannot mess this up. I gotta do this right. I gotta do this right. And the whole time you're saying, I gotta do this right, you're not saying, yo, how do I do this the right way? What do I need to do here? Transparency and honesty. Those were the traits that got me the job, was the type of person that I'm very, very transparent. This is who I am through and through. And when I got to the studio, I assumed this posture of, it wasn't even humility because it wasn't healthy. It was just non-existence, where I was going like, okay, if they don't see me, then I can't screw up, right? And that really bit me in the butt because I didn't realize how off the mark I was. And had I been a little more confident to expose who I was and my flaws, I know a lot of those people who at that time were part of me getting laid off because they're like, he's just not cutting it. He's not doing it. Those are a lot of my closest friends and mentors and people that I love and still talk to now. And we laugh about it now. But at that time, I did not have the confidence to lean into the resources that were provided to me by things bigger than just the job. And the resources that were provided to me were people believed in me. They really hoped that I could make it work, but I didn't have the confidence to go to them in that posture. I went to them in the posture of like, no, yeah, I'll figure it out. Wasn't true. And so when you talk about, like, how did you utilize the connections that you have? It was by being who I was and going like, I don't know. I do not know how to do this thing. What is it what's this camera angle that you're talking about? Yeah, there was a little bit of an energy from them of like, oh my God, this kid, but there was also this thing of like, no, you're exposing to me that you want to know and you want to figure it out. And that was rewarded with people going like, oh yeah, I'll share it with you. Let me tell you how to do this and that. And so I know it's one of those phrases that probably gets said a lot. Be who you are, be yourself. I know that gets thrown around a lot, but in that time and space, I wish that I had the wherewithal to be who I was, honestly, because that was the thing that helped me climb out of getting fired and going like, no.
Your next jobs?
The next job, the next job was, it came February So I got fired in December. I did some freelance in between that because folks are like, yo, everybody in this industry has been fired. Like that's the game. It's because you get laid off, the gig ends or whatever, and you hope that you're not, you're not so much of a negative presence that people are like, no, we want to work with that guy again.
Yeah, and could you talk about the 3 elements that you mentioned in our previous call of why someone would want to work with you?
One of the things that I learned in animation was like, you don't need to be perfect in all the layers, right? Like there's so many layers that comes together to make a show.
And I think this applies like not only to animation, but also to like any creative.
To any creative career. But the 3 elements is you are administratively strong, so you're on time, great communication with the production. You are creatively strong, right? Which you're just really dope. And then you are a good person to be around. Like you're easy to work with. They can come to you and not feel like they got to walk on eggshells when they present you with a deadline or something. The theory is you want to encapsulate 2 of those 3. So I know some artists that are really easy to work with and really, really good, have never made a deadline. And so the team goes, that's me. I'm that guy. I know some artists who are horrible to be around, but my God, like game-changing talent, and they're always on time. You will always hire that person, right? And you're like, God, it's a headache. But the benefit of it is the results that we get from the thing. And then you have people that are really easy to be around and always on time. Their work is not the best, but they turn it in early so that you can make the revisions on it and get it good. So identifying, it would behoove you to know what of those 3 elements, what 2 you bring to the game. Because then you can sort of go like, all right, I can actually exist within that atmosphere as opposed to pulling away from one account to try to take care of another account that I'm not good at. I am not going to ever try to make a deadline. I'm not. I'm just not. And now as a director, producer, I go to my assistant and go like, just move the calendar. Like, and that's my brother Justin just sits there like, Jesus, this guy. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're a nerd. Like, I'm really good. It's that thing of like, my reputation now is such that people know like, Chris is not obsessed with making a deadline. I'm not, because I know what's needed. And also I know Target is still going to put this thing on the shelf whenever we send it to them. They'll be fine, right? Like it's that energy, and that comes from 15, 16 years of like understanding the landscape. But learning those 3 things and realizing like what I was, there was so much confidence gained from that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm like, what do I do if I just feel really confident in one of those?
McDonald's, man.
Like
just
people
go to
like
McDonald's.
working with me.
No, just go to McDonald's. No, I think organically we occupy, and then it's leaning into like, oh, sure, I got to build that other thing. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to ask you 2 last questions that I'm like, you've seen my notes. I haven't looked at them, but they were all in my brain. But one of the questions that I really wanted to ask you, I think that money is something that it's really hard to talk about, like negotiating and knowing as a creative.
Now when you grew up poor, it's easy. I could talk about that all day. I'm like, word? Word, let's go.
I know, but I think it's daunting, at least like in the circles that I've been in. It's like, oh my gosh, how do you ask for money? Like, is this a paid opportunity? And sometimes you do like go paid opportunities for the opportunity. So can you talk to us about like what is something that people should know about negotiating, whether it is in like smaller projects where you know that like people might make money off of your project? Because I also like there's this other part of working with friends and like helping each other build, right? But I think that when you're working with like bigger studios or bigger productions, and sometimes they want to underpay you because you don't have the experience, like how can, knowing with your knowledge of like having worked at bigger studios, and also you as a creative, can you tell us like what should people know?
I think first and foremost, you should know what you're bringing to the thing. You're not sitting in that meeting because they were bored and wanted to bring someone in. You're sitting in that meeting because they require and desire your talent and what you bring to the thing. That is not arrogance. That is not cockiness. That is the reality of the business. They have a need. You provide that need. And so you should know that. The other thing is I, like I said, I wear who I am on my sleeve. I am who I am, and I don't think I have any enemies in the industry. I don't think. Maybe 2 or 3, and I think it's my brother and maybe my son. But no, I like people. I don't have enemies because I'm not hard to understand. I'm very clear and like, yo, here's the thinking and yada yada yada. And my love for people is very clear. Like I require the energy that my social battery demands, which is to connect with people. And that comes from my childhood. That comes from our home. I say all that to go, when I sit in a room with people, my goal is to disarm any of the preconceptions and go like, no, this is Chris Copeland talking to whoever this person is. The reason why that's so important is because when I say a number, they have to read that number and go like, oh, that's just objectively the number that's required here. And so I think we have to stop making finances a taboo. We have to stop doing that. That is a methodology implemented by people who have a lot of money and don't want to give it away, but they want something for it. Explain that to me, right? You want something, you don't want to spend the money to get it. You can deal with that with your therapist. This is the number, right? This is the number. And I have always been confident in communicating that. Again, it does come from growing up poor, where I'm just like, A, I'm not asking you for a ridiculous number. We know what the business dictates here. Like, we get it. All of these numbers are out there. I talked to homeboy over here who's 5 times less the talent than me, but has 3 times the experience. I know what he's making. The reason we talked is because I am who I am, and they were fine with divulging that information. Now I'm telling you, that's not a taboo. They're just pissed because they're like, dang, you know. Yeah, I know. And you know that I know, so now let's just make the number real, right? Like, it is really treating it in that way. You have to treat money like it is what it is, a transaction. And so I speak very candidly to studio execs. I speak very candidly to students and that come to me and inquire about stuff where I'm like, take that awkwardness that you feel later in the month when you can't pay a bill. Take that into that meeting. You'll be fine saying whatever number you need. Now I am definitely in a blessed position where I have an agent where I'm just like, I get to be, my brother and I get to be who we are, and they discuss the numbers, but I am on a very, very real, healthy dialogue trained relationship with the people that I work with, executives and everybody, because I'm like, when push comes to shove, transactions can become difficult if you don't have some sort of like confidence in the room with the people that you're there with. So again, don't make money a taboo. It's not a taboo subject. It's what we, De La Soul said it best. They said, money ain't everything. Everything makes me want it, right? Like, I don't, if I could do without it, I would. You know what I mean? I could eat cereal and play PlayStation all day. That'd be great. But the reality is like, we got to talk about that thing. And when you treat it that way, the dialogue tends to be pretty easy.
Yeah, I think I've struggled with it. It's like, oh my gosh, how do you talk about this? Like, and I think it's interesting because I don't know if many of people here like know my sister. My older sister is a very like business-minded person, and I think that like with her talking about money is maybe like from that perspective, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to ask for money because I know that like this is happening, you know, but I've been trying to like push myself for that because of like the similar reasons. And then I think like a part 2 of this conversation later down the line is how you get an agent and all of that. You talk about you loving people. And I think that honestly, like, I think everyone here really loves community, and like especially like we're all creatives in a different way or in a different industry. And so I been in the Hollywood industry and I know it can sometimes be hard to love some people and to continue to be genuine and authentic about that. I like, you've had your career in Hollywood. Can you talk about like how do you continue to be intentional about creating these spaces like at your job or like whenever you go to like networking opportunities or that sort of stuff? It's
memory. Like, I just remember being in all of the positions that I've been in. Like, I remember just wanting to have an artist answer a question. That question was so simple and ridiculous to that artist, but for me, it was everything. I just need to know what this is. I need to know that thing. And the few times where an artist would answer it, it literally invigorated me. it literally like, oh my God, okay, next step, whatever it was. I remember that. In remembering that, it caused me to a place of like, no, make sure you're open for that and receptive to that, because there are some questions that I get from people where I'm just like, Lord have mercy. That's the one, homie? Like, that is not shooting your shot. That is shooting your foot or your face. Like, what? Like, but it is going like, no, that question comes from a real place for that person. And
I hope we didn't ask any of those questions.
Oh, no. I talk too damn much, so it's on me. No, but it's just, it's in remembering that I go, okay, so then how do you know what is important to person A or person B? How do you know? You don't know. So even when that person is being a disgusting human being right now, I don't know the cause of that. I don't know why he's there, but that question for he or she or them, that question is everything. And it is incumbent upon me, for my faith, for my sanity, for my like what my drive is in life. It's important for me to answer that question with the same energy that they ask it. And it is in that capacity that I continue to go like, okay, making myself available for my fellow man, like that is without parameter. Like that is from the greatest of the people up here to homeboy out here. Like it is making myself available for that, because I know the stakes in that interaction. Like I really truly believe in the stakes of our relational dynamics, and I'm like, the least I can do is make myself available. And then I'm a father of 4, and I got a 17-year-old, 14, 11, and 9. He's over here doing God knows what, and I got to teach him how to be a human. And then my 9-year-old is like, look at this thing I made with my Lego. And then he throws it on the floor and breaks it. And then he stares at me and I'm like, word, NyQuil, right? Like, okay. But like, I have to be available for that full range. And it is practice for when I'm in the studio. And then when I'm in the studio, it's a reminder for when I get home. And just trying to be consistent in that it's tough as hell. It is tough as hell. But it's also why I got drawing. Because when I can put them Apple headphones on and silence things and just sketch when everyone's asleep, it returns me to the core of it all. And so remembering those things, our memory is very, very, very important, because it'll remind us of those next steps in a really cool way, I believe at least.
I love it. Maybe we should have pictures of each, like a failure.
Man.
I feel today for the success. This is really for the success story.
I tell my teams all the time, wherever I'm directing or in leadership, my brother and I always, we preach, rush to failure, hurry up, man. Like, let's hurry up and fail together. You know what I mean? Because ain't nobody getting an Oscar for the first draft. You know what I mean? Like, get your trash out and let's make it better. The mastery comes in the revision. So we're that energy is something we carry through constantly. Yeah.
We love it. Thank you. Does anybody have any question? And I think that it can be a question as creative, as an executive working in the industry. Yeah.
You mentioned how your kids play part in your artistic journey.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the projects that you take on before you were sort of having kids or versus now?
Not really, just because by the time I got in, I had a 1-year-old already. And so the way that they dictated is, again, I use the word reminder. They're reminders of, here's the thing, I don't pander at the expense of the creative output. Like, I don't care what YouTube, homie, have you watched some of these videos? Sometimes I see my 9-year-old watch something, I'm just like, I gotta sit and have a talk with him for an hour about 7 of the words that he just heard, right? And like, it's the reality of the world, society is growing and exploding in a way that as a parent, it almost tempts you into policing everything. I'm not gonna do that. Like, I grew up with a single mom who was like, yo, when I'm gone, you're on your own. And if you screw it up, you're gonna burn for a little bit. And I was like, okay, cool. I just asked if I could have some of your Pepsi, right? Like, but like I take that same energy into my creative process. If I am inspired by something and I feel the need to say something, I am going to say it and do it. In terms of the shows that I was on, I don't, as much as I can appreciate audience, I couldn't care less about the audience. Like, I really don't. And I say that not in any egotistical way at all. Like, if I try to pander what I do to you and you, I'd be in a corner crying, and you know what I mean? Like, so I have to listen to that same voice that was telling me to draw when trigonometry teacher was teaching her boring math. And so that energy is what I have when it comes to creating things. I honor and adhere to the creative process. That is from me to my father, right? Like like my spiritual side is very devout in that, where I'm like, I'm not listening to what you think I should do because you're not good at what I do, right? Like, that's the energy I have to have, because otherwise we have 9 trillion different things triggering our anxieties always, constantly. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather think about that 1983 regular Nintendo game that I played, that I'm thinking about like, yo, what would that feel like as a movie? Rather than my 11-year-old daughter who's like, hey, Dad, you want to play like Dress to Impress? You know what I mean? Like, you should make a movie on that. I'm like, baby girl, I love you, but I will cancel you. Like, stop it. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, that's that sort of discipline that I use when it comes to picking the things that I want to create, because I'm trying to leave a reflection of myself when I'm done. Like, and I can't do that predicated on what Greg in Ohio thinks I should be doing, or Christian, my son, in my front room thinks I should be doing. So, is that mean?
I don't think so.
So does that answer? Is that okay? Cool. Yes. Hi. Okay.
First off, thank you for being here with us.
Oh my gosh.
Hearing about your journey.
My pleasure.
My question is, how have you as an artist, like, I know that AI has become such a big and prominent space for the digital world, like, how you as an artist fight to keep it from taking over the animation space?
Yeah. Great question. I have a buddy of mine, John Lamb. John Lamb is at the forefront of fighting the AI stuff. Homie is vigilant. I'm just like, okay, get this man some weed, y'all. But he is, him and a bunch of artists, friends of mine, that I'm just like, we need the soldiers like that. You know what I mean? I have a perspective on AI that a lot of people, when I initially said it, were like, wait, what? And then it was like, oh yeah. My perspective on AI is another artist. It's another artist who draws like everybody else you've already seen. And I'm like, AI is competing for a job with me. That is my energy. Where I'm just like, if every movie ever made looked like the way that AI puts them out, we wouldn't watch them. So it's another artist who is really having a hard time figuring out how to draw hands. That's another weird thing. I'm like, yo, you got to figure that out. I've met young artists who can't draw hands. I'm like, oh yeah, this is some dude who is trying to impress the masses and get a job. And I look at it, I grew up watching Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. I'm very competitive. And I go like, I'm not concerned about it because it's not as dope as I am, period. Like, I bring something that is very specific to what I bring. And if we look at it in that way, it's sort of, it all of a sudden becomes a little less scary, because I'm just like, yeah, it's ugly as hell. When I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's not the cinematographer that I want on my thing. And the execs that I talk to and know, which are the guys that are up here, they're not coming to me and going like, yeah, but can you do it like AI? They're not at all. And so I treat it like another artist who I will tell very straight up, your stuff is trash and I'm not impressed by it. And I'm gonna take it upon myself to do something better than what it's showing you. And when you carry that sort of energy into it, it disarms the potential and power for it. I do believe AI will become a great tool. I do believe that. When I got into the industry, Cintiqs, which we draw on, they were just now, I remember walking into Warner Brothers and there was a box of them on the floor, boxes, just a line of them. And they were taking out, things off of people's desks and putting a Cintiq on there. And there were some people in there who were just like, okay, now everyone's gonna be that, literally leaving animation because they're like, I'm not about to start working on this thing. Now, you don't go into a studio. Someone's like, hey, I do all my stuff on paper. And we're like, cool, we'll eBay you. Like, get out of here, right? It's a tool that you figure out a way to incline yourself to. I think there's a world where if I'm in control of the AI tool and I'm going like, I'm able to input all of my work in there and I'm able to go like, yo, I'm gonna rough out pose A and pose Z. I need AI to take my library and give me all the poses in between. That could be a great tool and resource because it's my stuff, right? So I think down the line there will be a place where it's useful and beneficial. Right now, I think because we all have these and the language and the shout out is like, it's taken right. It's not, it's okay. I think it's a hotter and scarier thing than what it actually is. I am not impressed by it. I'm really not. I don't look at it and go like, yes, I'm inspired, I need to draw. I look at Disney's Hercules and I'm like, I need to draw immediately, right? Like that, we're still in that thing. For my kids and everybody, when they get older and they're doing this, is it gonna cancel? Maybe, because they're not as ambitious. Like their ambition is in different directions and different places. So maybe it'll be something, but as long as I'm breathing, I'm drawing to be better than whatever AI can dictate, period. That's my mission. So, does that answer? Okay, cool. Hi.
I wanted to ask, I guess, what is the process like working with writers for your different projects, and like how much collaboration would you say there?
It's horrible. They're not collaborative at all. No, I'm sorry. It can be. It can be. No, it's because my brother and we're extremely collaborative. I mean, when we walk into a room, we're immediately like, we're collaborating, like with your brother, and he's older than me by about 15 months. And so we foster a dynamic of everybody has a voice here. Everyone has something to say that I don't see. And with a writer, it's even more of that energy. And so typically, some writers are not, they just don't want to be in a space talking with you about, whatever you're talking about a lot of the time. And so you sort of have to respect the boundaries that they put up. But what my goal always is to facilitate an atmosphere where it feels like if we don't collaborate on this thing, we're going to miss something pretty amazing. And so it can be stressful, but when you disarm sort of any of their apprehensions with like, no, I don't see it and you do, and together we're going to figure something out, it tends to make for a pretty great experience. In my experience with the writers that we've worked with, it's been a pretty phenomenal experience.
Well, Janelle is a writer, so
hey.
so you may have to connect after. Well, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I feel like you dropped so much incredible advice that I am also very excited that people that are here got to listen to all of your advice, but also people that are in other places of the world, because I think that your particular experience of building your career somewhere outside of LA and coming into the city with already experience was definitely something that helped you land a job one day after moving here.
One day after moving here.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your incredible knowledge. And everyone, thank you so much. It's funny because I usually tell this to a camera, thank you for listening. But I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting that I get to say it to all of you. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of La Artisteada, a media collective for global culture shapers. Make sure to subscribe and let us know how your art is impacting the world around you on our social media channels at la.artisteada. This episode could not be possible without the amazing team behind it, Erin Jimenez, Diego Lopez de Anda, and myself, Kiara. See you on the next episode.